not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace, as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
That was former two-term president Bill Clinton speaking very, very Donald Trumpy right there when talking about immigration. And that's going to be one of the central themes of the show today, is going to be immigration. I'm sure, well, maybe I shouldn't say I'm sure. Joe Biden ran on 100 days of no more deportations. And it was in the news today that was it 76 Haitians and Cameroonians got deported. So I will hurry up because our guest does not have much time. But first and foremost, let me introduce our co-host, my homie, my dog, Pascal Robert.
Jason, how you living, brother?
I'm okay. I'm gonna get right into it. This is a friend that this will be my first time not physically, but it's my first time seeing her, not on a still photo, in probably, oh Jesus, when did I left high school in 95. So 25 years. So I have no idea what you look like. Probably the same. She's a defense attorney for deportation cases, and she has a very, very special, I shouldn't say special case, a case that I want you guys to share as much as possible, because I think it's important to get as much information out about this case, because it really kind of shows how horrible the immigration policies in this country are, and it's a bipartisan issue. Raha Jorjani.
Hello. Hi, it's such a pleasure to be with you both. Thank you so much for having me, and good to see you.
Good to see you. Hey. Thank you for taking some time to talk to me today. I know you're really, really busy because you're doing a big press push for your case, right?
That's right. I appreciate you both taking the time to have me on and helping raise awareness about the case of Walter Cruz. Insane facts.
So I'll try to be brief. I know you don't have a lot of time. You have a client, Walter Cruz. He gets picked up. He's been here for what, 20 plus years?
Yeah, he's been here since 2004, so going on 20 years.
And Walter gets picked up, and he wins his asylum case. I should probably add, when he was a young man, he got tattooed by a government informant, a gang tattoo. So he's can't go back to his home country of El Salvador, which he doesn't even really know anymore, right? And he wins his asylum case, and then what happens?
So, sometimes I say the facts of Walter's case out loud, and I almost sort of can't even believe that we are where we are. But essentially, Walter presented his case to an immigration judge back in 2018. He did all the things he was supposed to do. He brought evidence and experts, country conditions, human rights reports, everything. And the judge said, yeah, you should be protected. under U.S. laws. You have shown that you're more likely than not to be tortured if you return to El Salvador.
Mm-hmm.
And then the government appealed. The thing about the government appealing is that when an immigrant is detained and even if that immigrant wins their case and the government appeals, oddly enough, the immigrant stays in custody while the Department of Homeland Security appeals. So the case was appealed, and the appellate body, the Board of Immigration Appeals, sent the case back on a technicality and said, you gotta do this part again and fix this. So we did, and Walter won again. Once again,
So
an immigrant. Two times.
And usually when you win your case, you get released. But no. He won his second case during the Trump regime, and it was a little different.
So he wins his case for a second time, and DHS appeals a second time, which again, my feelings about the detention and deportation system, and they are strong feelings, aside, just on a basic legal level, I understand that each party has the right to appeal. Each party has the right to say, hey, the judge made a mistake and we want someone else to look at it. But where we have a problem is when one of those parties is put in a cage, and when one of those parties has to decide every single day to risk their life, and his well-being and his separation from his family, just in order to exercise his right to appeal. The Department of Homeland Security is not in detention. The Department of Homeland Security's attorney doesn't have to deal with all of the psychological and physical terror of immigration detention when he's deciding, should I file this motion? Do I want to continue fighting this case? But Walter does. So what we're asking for, what we've been asking for, and what we're really trying to get the public's help in helping us demand, helping the Alameda County Public Defender's Office, where I work. I'm an immigration attorney with the Alameda County Public Defender's Office, PD for life, had to shout that out. I think it wasn't said enough today. But our office is demanding his release. And what we're saying is we want it to be a fair fight. We want to make it so that Walter could be on the outside 3.5 years later, that enough is enough. And we want him to be on the outside while this case winds back up through the courts. And just to finish what I was saying about where the case is at, the second time it went on appeal, the board sent it back again. And this is essentially the Trump administration, because we're talking about the executive branch. We're not talking about independent courts. The Trump administration basically said, you know what, just redo the case all over again. And that doesn't make sense to me. So when I hear, I'm glad you played the Bill Clinton clip, because when I hear Bill Clinton talking about a nation of laws, really makes me pause.
Well, that's that immigration reform starts during the Clinton administration, which is probably around the time you're getting out of law school.
That's right. All of the, people think that all of this is something that, certainly what happened under the last president, who I'd like to not name, was despicable and a horror show. But I think it's really important for people to understand that most of what he was putting into place was legal. The parts that were legal because of what Bill Clinton signed into law. And when I hear him talk about a nation of laws and the importance of following laws, and then you have Walter Cruz sitting in detention, undergoing prolonged unconstitutional detention, and somebody's talking about, let's just redo his case 3.5 years into the case. I mean, people who have watched any legal drama on TV know that a new court you don't just get a do-over in the law, right?
And it was forcing him to go back to El Salvador. And I don't know if because I know you're, nose deep in this case, of course, but there was a story that came out about a detention center. I want to say it was in the South. And by the way, Pascal, my co-host, is an attorney as well. That they were threatening the ICE or the Border Patrol or ICE, I forget which one it was. I think it was Border Patrol, were threatening the Cameroonian detainees with COVID if they didn't say they were going to go back. Did you hear about that too, Pascal?
I think I have mentioned, I read something about that, about COVID-19, the detainees. And
yeah, they were threatening them like, we're going to give you COVID unless you go back and quit trying to fight your case?
The question that I'd like to ask is that this kind of posturing about immigration that we saw being placed at the feet of the Trump administration as some kind of draconian, almost insane reactionary posture. Why do you think it is that more people are not willing to realize that this has been almost a 25-year bipartisan consensus when it comes to immigration? And quite frankly, George W. Bush, the son, was probably the more progressive of all of the last presidents we've had, from Trump, from Clinton to Bush to Obama to Trump, on the matter. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
I don't know that I can explain it, but I completely agree with that analysis. We have failed our Black and Brown communities and our immigrant communities in the United States for such a long time. And we have failed on both sides. And I think one of the reasons that we as a country fall into this trap over and over again is because we're not telling the whole truth. We're scared to tell the whole truth. The whole truth is that our nation has had so many instances where it's gone to other countries and taken actions that have then made those countries unlivable, or made the water undrinkable, made it so that people can't get jobs, made it so that there are military occupations, and so on and so forth. Regardless of what we even think about those things, the truth is that we have done that as a nation. And so the irony when then people from those very countries come knocking on our doors for refuge and for safe haven, the fact that we then, we begin the story there about, whether or not they committed a crime and so on and so forth. That's not where the story started. The story started a long time ago with respect to what we did in other countries. And so I think if we could actually even just be honest about that, we would be having this conversation in a far, far different framework.
Well, you said something that was very important, and I know this in the context of Haiti being the child of Haitian immigrants. My parents are originally from Haiti. Is that much of the conundrum of immigration from Haiti is a direct consequence of U.S. foreign policy towards the country in terms of basically puppeteering political elections and enforcing embargoes and things of that nature. So you cannot divorce the immigration relationship of the United States and a country like Haiti, or particularly countries in Central and Latin America, from the economic and political and the puppeteering, political puppeteering that the United States does in those countries. And, the fact that we're talking about El Salvador, Central America, Latin America, all of these countries, going back to the Sandinistas and all this, they all have a long sordid history of the United States destabilization efforts of their governments through various foreign policy prerogatives. And what do you think it will take to actually have Americans become more conscious of this so that we don't have these kind of reactionary attitudes towards immigration?
I think it takes conversations like this. I think, Brian Stevenson repeatedly talks about, proximity to the truth and truth telling as a form of social justice activism. And he does a beautiful job with that. And I think that's what we all need to do. I think we all need to start, reminding folks that the story didn't begin when said immigrant came to this country without permission. Again, I'm a public defender. I represent folks that are impacted by the criminal legal system first, and then by the immigration system. Said differently, most of my clients have been convicted of crimes by a state court. And so when people are talking about my clients, they always start the conversation with, well, but they came here and they committed the crime. And I think that if we are going to tell the truth about this topic, we need to do exactly what you just said. And we need to shed light on all of those issues so that people can understand that it's okay to demand accountability from individuals. That's fine. But we need to demand accountability from nations and from governments as well. We can't be hypocrites. And so far, for the most part, again, back to Bill Clinton, a nation of laws. And here we are, and all I've seen for the last 15 years of being a detention and deportation defense attorney is us breaking the laws, is us not respecting due process when it comes to immigrants that go through our court systems.
Raha, I know you are busy getting ready for this very, very big trial. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
I really enjoyed speaking with you both. Hopefully I can come back sometime.
Yeah, when this is all done and Walter can go back and walk around the city, that'll be great. And you look the same. You're like an adult version of little you. She was a lot shorter in high school.
I was a lot shorter. Thank you. Have a wonderful night. Actually, wait, Jason, before I go, I want to just shout out one thing to your audience members, that we're doing a final push for Walter because he has been detained too long, and we're really worried that he won't be able to withstand his detention any longer. And so we are really, really trying to get the public's help in getting him out. So if anyone is interested, please Google the Walter Cruz story. And you will come up on a page that has a social media toolkit. We're doing a Twitter storm on Thursday, tweeting at various people who are in charge of Walter's detention to try to shed light on the issue. Thank you so much.
See, right. Nagar's watching too, so all the Albany High Cats are watching.
Nagar, what? Susan? Hi, Nagar. All right. Good night, y'all.
Peace, Raha.
Peace.
So that's and she didn't tell. We didn't get a chance to get into the whole story. Raha, if you want to hear the whole story, I made a clip recently, and I'll be ending the show with the clip of. It's about 8 minutes long of Raha telling Walter's story. Shout out to Nagar Souza. I'm gonna tell the story about how we accidentally broke your collarbone. Total accident. Blame Mark Souza. But Walter got COVID while inside because they're jam packed in there, and he complained about it. I guess everybody complained about it. No masks, no distancing. The cat caught COVID in there and got very, very ill. He didn't get the sniffles COVID. He got the oh shit COVID, and that's part of that whole. Raha says in the clip, she goes, when you're a citizen, you commit a crime, there's a statute of limitations.
Right.
When you're deemed an illegal alien, immigrant, whatever title you want to put on it,
undocumented worker,
there is no statute of limitations. You could be here for 50 fucking years, not bothering anybody, paying your taxes. If ICE wants to send you back, they'll send you back. Right now, the Biden administration is acting like, what? ICE is sending people away? What? Which is ridiculous. Is it 76 Haitians or was it 76 Haitians?
I was reading an article about that just before we started the podcast in The Guardian about how Biden is maintaining his deportation of not only over 70 Haitians, but like some of them are children. I think a few of them are children. Mm-hmm. 2 of them are infants. So, the machine continues. And again, I mean, what our guest said to me that is very important in recognizing this is that immigration policy and immigration to the United States does not exist in a vacuum. That usually, particularly when it's from countries that are proximate to the United States or within our vicinity, is a direct consequence of foreign policy activities that the United States is engaged in that have put our neighbors in precarious situations, either economically and politically, and the situation has made their home countries untenable for them to live in, and as a result, they seek shelter over here. So I'm trying to understand, when does the political education begin to make Americans consequently understand that if you are worried about the economic impact of immigrants on your shores, then when are you going to become interested in the foreign policy your government participates in that causes them to come upon your shores. And this goes back to a larger question that we've actually addressed before when it comes to concepts like, some of the reactionary politics that have developed in segments of the Black community in the rise of Trump around ADOS, is that you hear these people talking about how these immigrants come and take our jobs and this and that, but yet these same people will have the American flag in their in their social media policies without interrogating. This country is the same country that's destabilizing the native lands of these people, that's forcing them to come over here and quote unquote causes economic harm to your position. When are you going to interrogate the positions in which your homeland here, the United States, takes in developing countries and places around the world that's causing the economic instability abroad that's bringing those people over here in the first place? And I think that that's a posture that we rarely see Americans willing to interrogate. Did I lose you?
Sorry about that. No, you did not lose me. I was doing that thing I do where I'm out doing producer stuff. ADOS talks about the Great Reset too, don't they?
I think in the context of they do, but in the context of what will be its ramifications for Black unemployment, I think in some ways
Africans will not replace us. Is there?
Yes.
Jews will not replace us. I was like, hey, sounds a little tiki torchish to me. So there we go. We just lost all the Black people. You see, the viewership just went down. Yeah.
I mean, I think that there are ways we can talk about these things without having to come to these kind of, extreme reactionary positions, in terms of the economic effects of immigration, as well as the political policies and foreign policies that bring forth these realities in our domestic politics. You gotta have some balance.
You got to address this question from Brandon Farrell right here. Part of the problem is the complicity of the labor movement in supporting American foreign policy while pointing to immigrants as a threat to the American worker. So before we got on, and again, I'm Raha. I happened to hit her up about coming on this show. Before I hit her up, I didn't know it was like the week before the new hearing, and she had said she was going to do it, and she kind of got stuck doing a lot. She's been doing press all day. We talked about Reagan in '86. I believe he gave citizenship to, was it 3 million? Mm-hmm. Mostly Latin Hispanic immigrants, and it did do a bit of a number on labor unions. Especially in the meat packing sector, right? In the South. So what is your feeling about that? I mean, I don't look at it as a bad thing. I would definitely want those people to be, you've been here. You should have the right.
I mean, again, I think that we have to have a conversation, right, about how the effects of immigration, legal or otherwise, spill over into the economic reality of the job market for American domestic workers, particularly unskilled workers. And I think that there is somewhat a complicity in terms of, whether or not the labor union is going to interrogate foreign policy of the United States and how it may increase the precarity of domestic workers by allowing certain foreign policy activities to engage in that would increase the amount of immigration. But my larger point is that I am, some people ask me, well, are you a supporter of open borders? I'm not particularly a supporter of open borders, not because I have some kind of reactionary nativist kind of politics. I think my position on open borders is that how do you maintain a nation state where you can actually forecast your economic viability in terms of labor if you have a consistent influx of labor that you can't determine in the long term? So I think that one of the questions that you have to ask yourself is that if you believe in open borders, do you actually believe in the nation state project? In other words, do you think that the United States has the prerogative to develop a domestic economy in which it puts a primacy on protecting the interests of its citizens over those who more recently immigrate to the country. And that's a philosophical question I think that we have to be willing to have. But I think where I land on that position is that, if we agree that we're going to have a nation state called the United States, then we do have to make sure that citizens have the capacity to provide a living for themselves. And we have to have a balanced kind of immigration and foreign policy initiative that does not deny people seeking asylum coming to the country, but at the same time does not completely destabilize the economic well-being of people who want to work and are citizens of the United States. It's a difficult question, and I think that we have to find a more balanced way to do so, but I don't think the rhetoric of either Bill Clinton or Donald Trump help us come to those particular conclusions either way. And I hope people don't think that I'm dodging the question. I just think that the question is much more sophisticated than a fast and loose answer.
Mm-hmm. Instead of helping the state to criminalize immigrants, unionize undocumented workers, is what Brandon Farrell says.
That's an interesting solution. I mean, can that be done? Again, that causes us to cause a question. What exactly is what do we believe that the concept of citizenship has a certain value in American society, and it does that? Do we feel that the presence of the undocumented worker coming in causes a certain jeopardy to the citizens' economic well-being? It's a question.
Is part of the problem though, like U.S. foreign policy and 800 military bases in 170 countries and constantly destabilizing countries, constantly disrupting these countries that can self-govern with U.S. puppets, i.e. Chile, Central America, Nagar and Raha, Iran.
Yeah,
hell, Iraq.
It's a politics. It's the consequence of having an 800 military base empire, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like, immigration is not an issue that other large, powerful, wealthy countries deal with as well. This is a major issue all over Europe as well as the United States right now. Mm-hmm. But all I'm saying is that I think that a more balanced approach needs to be had. I think this is a very complicated question. Mm-hmm. And I think that I'm on the side of being humane, fair, and balanced, as opposed to being reactionary, quick-tempered, and using racism as a means to try to become the determinant of how we deal with people's lives in this issue.
You mean using racism negatively, right?
Negatively, exactly. All those dirty immigrants.
All those dirty immigrants taking your jobs.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton, I feel like, didn't even say it. Barack Obama can say it a little bit better than Bill Clinton. That's not saying much. It can say it better than Bill Clinton. But damn, playing that clip, it really sounds like they're not giving us their best. Or they're not sending us their best.
Yeah, that's exactly the way it makes it sound.
And it was a standing ovation, both sides of the aisle. I don't remember hearing a lot of pushback from the news at that time. I mean, it was a different time. I think that was was that even 2000 or was that in the 90s?
That was probably in the 90s. I'm not sure the year, but I remember seeing it in
99 or 2000. I think when he gave it, that was the State of the Union.
Yep.
And the way we demonize Donald Trump, and then you hear that same rhetoric from Bill Clinton. It's insane to think that, dude. Like, people love that guy to this day. I was going to play an Obama clip, but I was like, I don't know if the world is ready yet to hear their king.
I wish you played the Obama clip.
They're not ready to hear their king fucking push back on immigration. You get walls during the Clinton administration.
Oh, right.
You get walls. It was never supposed to be one single wall across because that's just silly. But the walls were strategically placed so people couldn't gain quick access, and that's how you get a lot of these deaths in the desert.
Well, one of the things that I love about that clip, one of the things that I love about the clip you showed, right, is that it complicates the narrative of liberals are the good guys and the conservatives are the bad guys. And I always believe that that narrative needs to be complicated.
Yeah. Definitely. Oh, I don't know what this is. Jessica just sent me something. Sorry.
Were you distracted?
I definitely got distracted. Hella sent me something. I have no idea what it is. I want to get into that article that we were talking about earlier.
Shifting gears.
A little bit. Black capitalism.
Yes. So there was an article in the New Yorker, the plan to build a capital for Black capitalism. The article was reflecting on a book by an author who's discussing Soul City. And for those who are not aware, Soul City was a city started by Floyd McKissick, who was a civil rights activist, that tried to take the policies of Nixon's Black capitalism, where Nixon basically tried to economically induce support from African Americans by saying we need to have Black businesses and Black industry under your control, and we'll funnel cash to you to do that. Let's not forget that part of the reasons and motivations under which that Nixon is partaking in this Black capitalist mantra is to try to siphon away support for the Black radicals, particularly the Black Panther Party, in the era of the urban rebellions and the riots or during that time. So Black capitalism becomes an enticement to try to find a way to kind of create a fracture in terms of the actual support from largely the Black middle class away from what were deemed the Black radicals of the time. So the article is talking about how, well, what would have happened if, Soul City would have worked, and the whole history of Black capitalism going back to Black Booker T. Washington. And the thing that I find fascinating about this is that it fulfills a certain kind of concern that I have in contemporary Black politics that I see, in that a lot of the politics from 1972 is being recycled, minus the challenge to capitalism. Now, I'm not someone who's going to say that we shouldn't have Black small businesses or Black people engage in entrepreneurship, but the notion that having Black capitalism in and of itself be a solution for 46 million Black people, when the supermajority of Black businesses are sole proprietorships owned by Black people who have at least 3 years college education, that has never demonstrated to trickle down wealth to the majority of Black folk. When you have studies like The Color of Money, which has recently come out, which is a very good book, demonstrating how Black capitalism and Black banking has never been able to actually change the economic condition for the majority of Black people. When you have, even going back to 1957, E. Franklin Frazier in The Black Bourgeoisie talking about the complete underwhelming performance of Black financial institutions in terms of their ability to compete with larger white ones and provide an economic kind of base for African Americans. The question then becomes, why exactly is this Black capitalism constantly being pushed as the actual means by which Black success is actually going to be determined for Black America? One of the reasons is that Black capitalism appeals intrinsically to the class that tends to control Black politics, which is the Black middle class, college-educated Black professionals, and Black people who are proximate to the position where they can most benefit from small businesses. So what becomes transparent in the plea for Black capitalism is that it's a way to assure a certain kind of allegiance to the ideological infrastructure that controls most of Black electoral thought in the country, meaning the Black professional class, the Black political class, and their acolytes. So what happens is that Black capitalism becomes almost a kind of wealth transfer to the black political class and the class of black people that support them, while most black people who are working class and working poor are not getting anything except being corralled into saying, oh, look, we have a black man here who owns a McDonald's that doesn't support unions and wants to keep wages below $15. Doesn't this make me feel uplifted that I can look up to him and tell my son that he could be like him? And it's kind of the kind of hoax that this kind of nationalistic type of racial politics gets black people into being in cyclically without being allowed to demand the type of public goods policy, i.e., like the New Deal, that was able to lift white poor people into the middle class. And that's why I find it problematic. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Jason.
Well, I mean, isn't this the same thing? Sorry, I had to return that message. Isn't this the same thing that Ice Cube and I think Lil Wayne were like arguing for, but with Donald Trump, and then they got pushed back? Not so much for what they were saying, but what they were arguing for.
Or who they were arguing it to.
Well, yeah, you know, I'm sorry. Who they were arguing it to is what I meant. Sorry about that. Which I thought was silly, right? Like, oh, well, they're talking to Donald Trump, therefore they're bad faith actors and they're shitty guys. It's like, but listen to what they're asking for. This is just on some black capitalism shit.
Right.
This is on some more Negro businesses. And there was a clip that we played a few episodes ago. I don't remember what show that was, but it's the Richard Nixon clip. I think you told me.
Great clip. I wish we had that clip.
He's got this ear to ear fucking grin, and Richard Nixon's like, "Oh, I love the Black Power movement because you know what they want? They want black banks in black neighborhoods, and they want to buy black shit, and I don't care." And that's the way.
Because Richard Nixon is saying, yeah, that means I don't have to give any government resources to any kind of anything that's to do with black people, because we don't have to cut them into any of the services that we gave to white folk to lift them out. We don't have to worry about deindustrialization. We don't have to about building any kind of real jobs. We just say, listen, Negroes, you guys can go out and start your own businesses and you'll be okay. And that's why he loves it. And that's what conservatives.
Doesn't that? Do you feel the way, and I'm asking this to the chat as well, do you guys feel that that becomes like the narrative for black success? Like, go out and do your own thing, start your own business, because that's what you have to do.
Absolutely.
We're not going to talk about strength and unions. We're just going to talk about if you don't have your own thing that it is you do, your brand, then what the fuck are you doing, Negro? Asking for a goddamn handout. Jesus.
Right. And no one talks about the fact that the number of houses and mortgages that were given out between like 1939, the beginning of like the FHA mortgage program, up until 1968, something like 98% of those mortgages went to white families and less than 2% went to black families. But yet you're going to tell black people that they need to lift themselves up by their bootstraps without having the same kind of economic largesse that came out of those systems that go to them. But you're going to say, well, listen, we're just going to sprinkle some black capitalism your way and you guys should be okay.
And another thing, we were talking about it, definitely was an off-air conversation about the people that always say make America great again, have this image of the 50s, and they always forget the humongous social safety net that existed in the 50s to get people where they are when it comes to free, very affordable college, FHA loans, and access to those homes, union jobs. You know, it's insane that people want to go back to that era, but they forget they want to do it without the government intervention. I was on a show last night with Ben Burgess. Anybody that was checking that show out and that's here today, thank you for watching. And there was, before I got on, there was a libertarian guy that Ben was debating. And when he asked me to do the show, I had no idea he was going to debate some crazy libertarian dude. And knowing Burgess, I should have been like, oh, it's Ben Burgess. Of course, he's going to debate some crazy libertarian dude. And that dude's idea of his utopia was really on some, this is just utopia shit. Like, you're not basing this in any sort of reality. This is just fantasy land. Did you watch any of that?
I caught the part where he came on right before you, but I didn't hear his proposed utopian.
You know, in his mind, he can just grab a piece of land just because it's land and grow shit on it and live on it. And hey, shout out to Toussaint. Thank you. And there you go. That's all you need. And I'm like, what? And he said he's going to put a fence around it, and he's not going to have to like shoot anybody off his land, because in his utopia, you know, if you have full autonomy over your body, you're all good. Everything's all good. No one's going to trip. There's no violence. No one wants.
What kind of Lord of the Flies kind of mentality do these people have about, you know, social, you know, social behavior about human beings, man?
I don't understand where that shit comes from. The idea that you can achieve liberation through capitalism is like saying you can lose weight by sitting on your ass and eating pizza. Damn. Like, I'm trying to watch a little bit of the show, and I'm getting ready because I didn't know. I had no idea what I was going to talk about with Ben Burgess. And again, I'm not the smartest dude, and Ben is pretty fucking smart. I didn't know what the fuck he was going to throw at me. So I'm like trying to be ready for whatever the fuck's going to happen on the show. And I'm hearing this guy talk, and then I fucked up. If you saw when I came on, the dude said he was from the Bay Area. So I just want to know where from the Bay he was from. Maybe I know him. Maybe we know some of the same people. And I go, oh, you're from the Bay. I'm from the Bay. Where are you from? And he tells me where he's from. I was like, huh. Figures. He's from the peninsula.
What is that? What is the peninsula? What does that tell you?
It's where Tom Brady's from. And Barry Bonds.
Are you going to hate on Tom Brady now?
No, I called that game.
Yeah,
and David Griscom wouldn't come on the show.
Are you going to be transparent about your feelings about Kansas City, the team, not the city?
I don't know. Is this a sport? I won't talk sports long on here because I did reach out to I think they're called not Red Scare, Red. They're socialists that follow sports. And they do some great work, and they were on the homegirl Jackie Luke Mon show by any means necessary recently. And okay. I heard the episode and they very, very good takes on the NFL and just sports in general and issues with sports. And they even got into the neoliberalization or the gentrification of sports, what we're seeing right now. And I hit him up and I was like, let's have a show about that. And they were like, dude, we'll go on your show if you come on our show and talk about it. So I was like, yeah, so we're going to do, so get ready, Pascal. But real talk, I am a Denver Bronco fan, and you haven't seen me wear my Broncos stuff because I always wear it on Sunday.
Now, I want to interrogate that.
You don't want to.
Okay, you live in the Bay Area.
In the Bay, I'm from the Bay.
I'm
wearing a Bart shirt right now. East Bay all day.
You have how many football teams in the Bay Area?
2. 1. Raiders left. Never was.
Okay. And you are a Denver Broncos, and you have no proximate. You've never lived in Denver?
Never.
But you're a Denver Broncos fan.
Die hard.
How does that happen?
John Elway.
Okay.
John Elway. John Elway went to Stanford. I think he was born in San Jose. His dad coached out here for a time. That was one of the first football games I can vaguely remember, was watching that ending of the big game with the laterals. But before that happened, John Elway had drove Stanford down, and they kicked what they thought was a game-winning field goal with like 6 seconds left before Cal does that bullshit and wins the game. John Elway for me was like the end-all be-all because he always came back. And I just loved watching that comeback. But I just stuck with the Broncos ever since then. That was 84 or so. So I do not like the Kansas City Chiefs. I have a serious hatred for Patrick Mahomes. If you follow me on Twitter on football season during Saturday, you will see me and David Griscom from Left Reckoning and the Michael Brooks show even when Brooks was alive, we would go back and forth about college football. And Patrick Mahomes, a quarterback of the Chiefs, is a Texas guy. He went to Texas Tech. Griscom is a Texas guy. And so he hit me up about a Super Bowl prediction, kind of like in passing. And I was like, I don't think the or maybe I hit it. One of us hit each other up about it, and it was kind of whatever. And I was like, I don't think Mahomes is going to win this one. I think this is Brady. He's like, can't nobody beat the Chiefs. And I said it on Burgess Show. I'll say it again. I've seen explosive offenses like the Chiefs, and I've definitely seen Andy Reid offenses. And the Chiefs do not have a very good defense. Their offense made their defense look a lot better than it actually was. And that defense got exposed by a tougher team. And I had a good feeling that was going to happen. The only thing I thought that was going to stand in the Bucs' way was the safety for the Chiefs. I can't think of his name right now. It's a French name. He went to LSU. They called him the Honey Badger. I can't think of his name. Tyrann Mathieu. I thought he might be the only problem because he is so tough. And unfortunately, his toughness caused some penalties that were very costly. Third down penalties. Teams like that kind of cakewalk through a season playing oh so soft have a tendency also to, once they get hit, they get shook. So if you go back to the 2001 Super Bowl where the Patriots, who are pretty big underdogs, I think they were 2-touchdown underdogs, to the St. Louis Rams at the time, the greatest show on turf, they were lighting everybody up. Nobody could stop the Rams, who had won the Super Bowl like a couple years before, right? In 99. And they got hit in the mouth, and they had never really gotten hit in the mouth back when you could be a little more physical. And, you know, Kurt Warner never went back to the Super Bowl with that Rams team. And then you go back to the 1984 Dolphins, and to give even more context, we had no cable. My mom dated a guy that would record all these 49er games. He was a fucking big Niner fan. And I remember the only way to watch TV was to watch videotapes. So the only videotape that was around for a while was the 84 Super Bowl. So I've literally watched the 84 Super Bowl probably about 100 times. And one thing I took from watching that game was Dan Marino came in that season, much like Patrick Mahomes, breaking every record you could break, kind of playing out of his mind. And he hit a buzzsaw called the Niners defense, which no one really thought was that tough of a defense, but it was a very tough defense. I believe Fred Dean played on that team. So, and Dan Marino never went back to a Super Bowl. So I think this is it for Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he's ever going to go back to a Super Bowl. I think he'll be a very good quarterback. He'll put up huge, tremendous numbers, but he will never go back to a Super Bowl. And that's it for football.
What do you think about the brouhaha that's being made of Tom Brady and his alleged politics in the wake of this Super Bowl victory?
We played on this show a clip of Jim Brown saying the most ludicrous bullshit ever. Jim Brown might be the greatest football player of all time. If you were to line up from when the motherfucking game started to now, take championships out of the equation. We're talking about pure players. Red Grange, Jim Brown, Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, Brady, Montana. No order. No order. Jim Brown's on that list every time. He dominated his era like no one could dominate his era. He was larger. I would say Jim Brown was the equivalent of Wilt Chamberlain, where Wilt Chamberlain was just a 7-foot monster that you really couldn't contend, or Bill Russell, right? These just freaks of nature athletically that were just beyond their era. And I say that was what Jim Brown was for his era. And you don't really see it in that mediocre film One Night in Miami, but Jim Brown has got some really horrible politics. I think. We played a clip of him from 1984 talking about how the civil rights movement was bullshit because people wanted to speak Swahili and not open up more businesses. That's Jim Brown. Maybe one of the greatest football players of all time. If you're going to push back on Tom Brady, which I don't mind, you got a PPP loan for like $900,000. For what? Is he friends with Trump? Probably. So is Russell Simmons.
That's true.
So do people stop listening to fucking Def Jam? There's way more problematic people in sports. Hey, I gotta highlight this one. We played a clip last week of One Night in Miami.
That was a great clip.
And I told Pascal that the guy playing the Malcolm X character is like Barack Obama playing Malcolm X.
That was terrible.
Was I right?
You were right. And I mean, I found it offensive that they made the Malcolm X character so soft, man.
What does Sammy say? These top level athletes have a different kind of brain wiring. You can't really take anything from their political opinions. Doesn't detract from their ability in the sporting arena. You know what, man? Everybody like fell all over their face for this guy that plays for the Chargers. I don't know if he sat the season out or if he was hurt. I don't really remember him playing, the Justin Jackson. And he gets on all these left shows. I'm like, why is he there? What did he do? That's so wonderful.
They say he has good politics on healthcare and Medicare for all.
What, he wants it?
I mean, listen, he seems to have evolved into a left political analysis. We can't discourage people for coming into a left analysis later in their life.
Oh no, he's a young man. I'm not mad at him wanting health care for everybody. Thank you. I'm not impressed with he hasn't said anything that political. I mean, he was part of that, what do they call it, the People's Party, that everybody is jumping off that ship right now. Pascal's takes on pop culture were vindicated by that movie. I sat there. If my girl comes, she probably won't come upstairs. I sat there and watched that shit the whole time, so mad, because I was like, why is Barack Obama playing? It just pissed me off. And every time somebody plays Muhammad Ali, they always play him like he's just this kind of caricature of a
right.
guy. I don't know if I wants to be a Muslim. You's a Muslim? I fucking watched that movie and I was like,
Was
the movie.
Wasn't thrilled.
I thought the Sam Cooke guy sang his ass off. he nailed it. No, he's a singer. He's the guy from
you know, the woman who played his wife in the movie is his real wife.
Yeah.
She's quite attractive.
He's the guy from Hamilton. So
Right.
I thought he was lip syncing, and they were like, no, that's the guy actually is singing those parts. He killed it. If you want to see a better mediocre black film, that's a little bit above mediocre. It's called Sylvie's Love. So speaking of black capitalism, I keep forgetting it's Black History Month. We need to be on more white people shows this month. Nah, but seriously, no. So when we go watch a movie at night or whatever, it always has the like black voices, black love, black fun. It said black fun, and it was a picture of Eddie Murphy in Coming to America.
Oh, that's coming out. You know, there's a remake.
There's part 2. Yeah, part 2 is coming out, but it was like oh, if you want black fun,
Black
Negro slang.
fun. I mean, what is that like? Black was it like there's soul music in the background when you're
Yeah,
the black?
little nappy-headed black girls playing double dutch. Hey, it said black fun and it said black love. So this movie, so for anybody that is a football fan, if you remember Nnamdi Asomugha, who played for the Oakland Raiders, and I think he had a disastrous couple seasons in Philadelphia after I think he got picked up as a free agent. Married Kerry Washington. I had no idea Nnamdi Asomugha had acting chops. And he produced a film where he was the lead. Football players don't have egos at all. With the Tessa Thompson, who is a wonderful actress. It's called Sylvie's Love.
I've heard a lot of people like that.
Well, it's got a little teensy weensy bit of like class politics for Harlem in the 50s. So it's a story about a well-to-do black girl in Harlem who meets a musician played by Nnamdi Asomugha. And they go on a date and kind of hit it off. But after they hit it off, he gets a gig playing overseas. And he feels like the only way, or his band feels like, you know, black people have to go overseas if they want to really make it in jazz. And then he comes back years later. She marries a very rich black man. There's a scene where her husband needs to close a big deal. And the reason why this company is using her husband's firm, and they tell her this, is because they were having an issue because they had fired a black employee. So they wanted to show they weren't racist by hiring her husband's firm. And her husband knew this. So he's kind of portrayed as a sellout character.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, that's how we view that, right? Like they're sellouts.
The deep nuance is intriguing.
So that's as deep as that movie gets, is that girl comes from money. But that's kind of it. But he's a musician that's been traveling all over the world. So how really broke is he? I mean, check it out. It's definitely a love story that you've seen a trillion times. It's just got black people in it.
Right. You know, it's funny. I was watching Jared Ball, and he's considering this kind of like the second wave of blaxploitation films in the age, the great awakening since the George Floyd protests. We've been seeing this bombardment of black cultural production in film, media, television, as well as this like onslaught of capital and money being poured into these nations. And he was just talking, I remember Jared Ball talking about it's like, you know, this is like the second kind of blaxploitation era with all like media you're seeing on TV and film and whatnot. And all of it to me kind of just fulfills all of my suspicions about the way in which race is used in media production to, you know, keep black people in this kind of position of being otherized and being siloed away from the normal functionality of society in which all other parts of Americans, people and citizens participate. And it works to keep the illusion of a segmented other that, oh, look at them, they're interesting and exotic.
So you think it's just a market, right? At the end of the day,
it's part marketing, and I think that also works well to, you know, keep, you know, reduce black people to spectacle. In other words, the whole kind of like, you know, let's look at them. Wow, interesting, fascinating. You know, it's like every time I see particularly liberals talking about all of these shows like Small Acts on Amazon Prime and all these kind of demonstrations. And I feel like, you know, they're looking at, they talk about black people almost like they're going to see monkeys in a zoo. It's really kind of like this derogatory. It's like, oh, isn't this fascinating? Oh my God.
How do you feel about, and I'll ask this to the whole chat, and I do watch entirely too much Amazon Prime, by the way, because Amazon Prime is the only place I can see my favorite show, American Justice, hosted by Bill Curtis, who I'm going to try to get on the show at some point. I really want to talk to Bill Curtis. Anyway, Black Panther. I know you know some Negroes that put on some fucking kente cloth and went to the goddamn theater and cried during Black Panther. And if you say you don't, you're a fucking liar. I'm gonna call you a liar on air. I'm gonna do you like fucking what's that shitty dude we had, Jimmy Dore? Hey, you fucking liar! Check off. You know some black people that put on kente cloth and did this shit. Remember when I think LeBron even did this shit. That's part of the trailer for the new Coming to America, where Leslie Jones jokes to Eddie Murphy because she's supposed to be the woman he screwed on accident. He has a kid in America that he doesn't know about, and he goes back to find this kid he didn't know about, and Leslie Jones is like, "You supposed to be the king of Wakanda," and Eddie Murphy goes, "Wakanda is not real."
Wakanda is a fictional place.
Like some white people probably did as well. I know in my soul that there's a white person somewhere that wore kente cloth to go see Black Panther.
You mean like Nancy Pelosi? Do you remember when the
remember that picture we played when Conley was on there where Nancy Pelosi is standing over, or no, Nancy Pelosi is kneeling, and fucking what's the black girl's kind of big? Stacey Abrams is standing over, and Nancy Pelosi is kneeling in the kente cloth, and like MF Doom is in heaven, and like all these like Kobe's looking down. It was like Kobe, MF Doom, and John Lewis looking down.
I mean, seriously, the fact that we saw like the Democratic Party delegation in kente cloth kneel down like they just got off a Wakandan spaceship. And I mean, so I don't know if it was for the George Floyd protest or whatever. I mean, what does that say, man, about how the spectacle of race is manipulated for sympathetic purposes, for emotional traction?
What's frustrating about what you just said is Bill. Oh, who's the guy that you don't like? Bill. I keep want to say. What'd you say? No, black guy. I keep want to say O'Reilly. Bill. What is his name? Black guy, light skin, union guy.
Bill Fletcher. I don't dislike Bill Fletcher. He's, you lost sound.
Oh shit, that was sound.
You lost sound. You're gonna have to talk. Now you're putting me on a spot where I have to actually talk exclusively when you're gone because your mic went out. That's incredible. But no, seriously, audience, like, what does it say? We seeing Pelosi, all the Democratic congressional leadership donning kente cloth, thinking these kind of like, Wakanda-esque strike a pose kind of posturing, all trying to say like we are in support of the black people. Isn't that in the ultimate of like the worst type of pandering? How are you? I mean, it's absurd.
What's frustrating? Sorry about that, guys. What's frustrating about that whole thing is Bill Fletcher made some interesting points about Colin Kaepernick. Was it during the lockdown? Maybe it was a couple years ago. And Colin Kaepernick to me is kind of a complicated figure because I do think at some point he made it all about him. And it got taken away from whatever he was talking about. It started to become about him. And I think that happens right around the time of the kneel, right? Because we always forget what he did first. He just fucking sat down. He just sat down. I was like, And on a slow news day, they asked the backup quarterback, what's with the sitting down? Really? I think this country's fucked up and police are killing black people and that's not right. And I'm totally paraphrasing. He had a much better answer than that. And then it became about Colin Kaepernick kneeling because of all the reactionary Tammy Laurens of the world and Fox News of the world that really started to make it about Colin Kaepernick. And he didn't know how to push back and keep people focused on the much bigger issue. Now, he does do humanitarian work ever since he's been out of the NFL. They took that fucking guy's job away for nothing. Nothing. He didn't say any Muhammad Ali type shit. I've never seen someone ask how to protest. He literally asked a man who he was never offending, how do I not offend you? Oh, you can kneel. That's a benign gesture that doesn't hurt my feelings. It makes you look docile. I'm sure that's not what that guy said.
Shots fired to Kaepernick.
And I shouldn't say this because we are separated by one person that I know very well. And I don't have any issue. I don't know him. All I know is that he does humanitarian work. I know that the NFL took his job away on some bullshit. The kneeling got bigger than him because that was the one time players got FaceTime, right? So I hate the fact that they took that away from him because his career, back to watching football, I felt like his career ended on a very sour note that wasn't necessarily his fault. He was one of the most explosive players in the NFL. I watched Colin Kaepernick at the University of Nevada break that record for the most passing. I think he had the most passing and rushing yards, right? The 10,000 passing yards in his career at Nevada and like over 5,000 rushing yards. He was a very exciting player to watch in college, and a second round pick going to the Niners that actually had the first pick overall that was playing took that team to a Super Bowl, almost won the Super Bowl, came back, one of the most miraculous comebacks in playoff history. He was at the cusp of being like great. I think he still has a record for like rushing yards in a game, defeating the Packers at home during a playoff. Like Colin Kaepernick was worth the price of admission, and he was definitely worth the cover of all those magazines. And ultimately, he didn't do anything bad. He wasn't slapping his girlfriend. He wasn't getting caught doing blow in a club. No DUIs. Decent dude that got thrown under a bus and then ran over numerous times.
Well, in the context of what American football represents for the American patriotic project and overall nationalism and all of that Star Spangled Bannerish stuff, he was public enemy number one.
Which is insane because, again, you're talking about a guy that's never really ruffled feathers. When we talk about the squad being a creation of the media, Colin Kaepernick being a problem is a creation of the media.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with that to an extent, but what I'm saying is that there are people who watch football who have that kind of Fox News type patriotism, who love that song, and I'm proud to be an American. And I hope that, that's, they are really, that exists, bro.
But those motherfuckers watch hoop too. Basketball ain't just me and you watch. I don't even really watch basketball.
I think that football reinforces the exigence of American nationalism and patriotism in a way that no other sports in America does. If you look at the way the military commercials we have during football games compared to other athletic endeavors are, the whole nature of the game reinforces American empire in a way that no other sport does in the consciousness of the USA today at all, in my opinion.
I agree with that 100%. and the NFL started doing that partnership with the armed forces. I want to say like 2007, 2006. So players never really traditionally came out during the national anthem. It wasn't even shown on TV. That was a baseball thing. So when you think about that with Colin Kaepernick being like, because ultimately, if he never gets asked that question, he keeps sitting. It's not a big deal. Maybe he can still finish out his career, and those are just the down years of his career, right? Because if again, I know you're not a big football guy, but after the Niners go to the Super Bowl, there's issues with the coach, and there's issues with ownership. There's issues with the front office. There's definitely issues with their draft picks, and you have this player that hasn't even hit his peak stride. I don't even know if the brother's 30 now. He's still a pretty young guy, and they never put anything around him. You know, eventually defenses are going to figure out how to slow that train down a little bit. And this is what's so interesting about race and sports. The lingo becomes from these sportscasters, as Colin Kaepernick is there right towards the end of a lot of these older white guys that are doing the commentary after the fact, right? The analysts. And the whole thing is, but can he play from the pocket? If you want to win in this game, you have to play from the pocket. The only way that you're going to win a Super Bowl, if you're going to win, be a winning team, a quarterback has to play from the pocket. You can't run around, and that's all he does. So his game starts to be adjusted in a point where it really shouldn't be adjusted. And you look at the success of someone like Lamar Jackson from your Florida, you're going to change it up a little bit every season, right? But when you got a guy that has this weapon in his legs, why would you want to try to take that away from him and make him one-dimensional to fit what you think a quarterback should be? So Colin Kaepernick suffers from a little bit of that towards his tenure in San Francisco, and then the NFL goes, we're not going to let you get traded. My Denver Broncos tried to get Colin Kaepernick twice. So that's how I feel about Kaepernick.
I hear you.
I missed the opening of the Super Bowl. I caught it like the end of the first quarter. So, and her is from Vallejo, California, the Bay Area. Bay Area. That's where E40's from. Thursday, we're going to be talking about China.
China, man. China.
If you have questions that you guys want to ask, send them now. Send them to me via email or send them to me via Facebook or Twitter. Any questions you have for Professor Ken Hammond? He's been on the audio podcast before doing a kind of a debunking segment on China. And the China episode got started because a person that I know had shared the BBC Uyghur article about, the torture and the rape. And I was like, and then went on this whole thing about repression in China and no freedom. And, that's why they don't have Facebook, because China's mean. And I was like, I don't think that's why they don't have Facebook. I think it has more to do with them just not wanting American companies dominating certain markets. And not paying taxes. And I got called a Holocaust denier for saying that there's evidence that this person is not being forthcoming. So yes, Sam. Let me highlight Sam's right here. Why is it that every article that pops up in Western media all cite the same Adrian Zen's BS? And people go off that. So we're going to be doing some China debunk with Professor Ken Hammond, because I definitely want to, as Pascal would say, interrogate that.
Indeed.
I was talking about with Margaret Kimberly, because Margaret goes on CCP News all the time. Well, it's not called CCP News. It's called like what, CGN TV.
Something like that.
Oh, there's a delay now.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't see it coming from me.
Yeah. Well, now you're on time.
Oh, that I didn't even.
Maybe you were daydreaming. So yeah, we're gonna talk. Wait, oh, there's someone who we're talking to. We're talking to somebody Saturday. I forgot who it was.
You tell me.
The calendar's in a different room. I can't go run and go get it. But I know for sure that tomorrow I'm watching Full Metal Jacket on the Ben Burgess show with Ben Burgess and definitely Forrest. And I forget who else, but I'm definitely taking Daniel Bessner's place. So take that, Daniel Bessner. You've been replaced. And just because it's February, you've been replaced by a black man. Equality. He said AT&T tries to silence Pascal again.
It's conspiracy. The Black History Month conspiracy.
The black. I want everybody that's watching this show, black or not, go to your streaming service, because you guys all are on a streaming service. Let's just be honest. And go to the black section and watch a black movie. Because every time a non-black person watches a black movie, a black man's credit score goes up 5 points. So, and it has to be a black movie. It can't be a movie with a Negro in it. You can watch The Color Purple because there's Negroes in it, even though Steven Spielberg directed it. Totally fine. You have to have a majority Negro cast. Soul Food, totally acceptable. What else can they watch?
Old episodes of Sanford and Son?
You can. If you watch an episode with Sanford and Son where they lean into what Chico and the Man, because Chico and the Man is like a spinoff of Sanford and Son. So if you get one of the spinoff episodes, then you've helped out multiple brown people all at once.
Yo, stop, man. We gotta stop.
So, but don't watch any hood movies. So you can't watch New Jack City, No Boys in the Hood, no Menace, but you can watch the Friday series. Definitely don't watch the Cosby Show. We played Cosby Show on here once. I totally played it and didn't think anything of it because we were kind of in a like, oh, let's go down the nostalgia road. A movie you can watch that will also help out multiple ethnicities. Breaking 2. Electric Boogaloo. You help out everybody, and you help out interracial relationships. So that's all I got for today. Anything you want to say signing off? You want to talk about your book? Also, before you say anything, everybody on here that enjoys watching Pascal speak, because I do, you can find his writing at Black Agenda Report or Huffington. Bigger than that, can you guys all send him a message right now to finish that book? Can you guys just like finish that book, finish that book, finish that book?
It's a work in progress.
No, like I need y'all to say like finish that book.
They don't. They like me. They're not trying to put pressure on me, man.
I need the pressure on you because I want to see the book done. See, Sam already said it. Hold on, I'm putting that shit up there. Don't be no punk, Pascal. Finish that book. Finish that book. You got to finish the book, man.
I understand, brother.
Can you tell them what the book is going to be about?
It's going to be about from Obama to Trump and the crisis of black politics. How the class makeup of black politics enabled the disruption that is helping facilitate fissures in terms of how we view black people and black politics. Not that black politics got Trump into office, but how the crisis of black politics is becoming more prevalent.
Is that because of Kamala Harris?
I think it's because of the way in which, from the Obama era, the black political class has become centered as the means of becoming the aspiration of black politics is being translated into more black faces in high places, as opposed to the actual results of policy. And there's a segment of black folk who are trying to push against that, while mainstream black politics is trying to celebrate it. So the larger question becomes, is black politics about reconciling with American exceptionalism and being able to have, yellow-skirted poets recite poetry at inaugurations and the NFL and all kinds of stuff.
Keep going.
No, it's a lot of it will talk about how race is used cynically in American society to fulfill an agenda of a politics that doesn't work for most working class people and black people in general, and that black politics ultimately, like most politics, is a class politics, and the class politics of black people does not work to the benefits of most black folk. It works for mostly the black petite bourgeoisie and the black political class, who are not interested in policy, but more interested in seeing black faces in high places.
So should I end with Torre's clip about Bill Clinton, or should we end with Raha's clip about her client?
We can end with Torre. Got to promote our brother.
Okay. Let's end with Raha. She was here.
That's true.
She was here. So also Zero Books is going to be playing an episode. Sorry. Zero Books is going to be playing our episode with Dylan Rodriguez tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
That's going to go on Zero. I've been lagging on giving it to Doug. That's my bad. So he'll have it tonight. I'm going to end with this clip of a conversation I had with Raha probably about 2-3 months ago. Oh, God, maybe more than that. Maybe like 4 or 5 months ago. And it's about 8 minutes. It's a longer clip. And she tells the story of her client that we talked about earlier on the show, if you missed it. Walter Cruz is his name. And I would appreciate if you guys could retweet the clip. If you don't want to retweet the clip, that's cool. But if you could, at the very least, hashtag free Walter Cruz, that would be huge. Because this dude's story needs a lot of attention, because I think we need to really look at immigration policy from a bipartisan perspective. And I feel very confident that most of the cats that watch this show understand that, the Clinton administration was very, 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 very much an architect of the immigration system that we see now. But there's a lot that do not know that. And they don't know Barack Obama was the deporter in chief. And Trump was just louder. I think it was Pascal that said, he goes, Donald Trump was just louder about it. About how he handled immigration. Whereas these other guys, Bill Clinton can make that speech that we started the show off with, which is literally the State of the Union address, which sounds very, very Trumpy. And get a standing ovation and be heralded as this great president. And Donald Trump says the same thing, and he's the bad man. So my fear is that when you get the bad man out, now the good guys in there that when these heinous acts happen, they don't get the same attention. Like 76 people getting deported after Joe Biden said no one's getting deported for the first 100 days. And maybe it's not catching the attention because these are Haitian immigrants and Cameroonian immigrants. I don't know. I mean, Pascal, you might have a different, a certain feeling on that as well.
We're stuck in the orange man out, Biden good view of politics.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So here is, we're gonna end with this clip. Hold on one second. Keep talking.
Just keep talking. What? Jason's loading up the clip. Keep talking. Are you having problems getting the clip?
Nah, it's just I got it. You know, it's a process. I don't want people looking at me looking at other stuff. Then it looks like I'm getting a clip ready. So here is the clip of Raha and I discussing her case of Walter Cruz, who again won his asylum case twice. And the reason why he won it was because it was proven that if he returned to El Salvador, he most likely would get killed because an informant working for the state tattooed a gang tattoo on that fool. And because of that, he can't return. Even if he wanted to return, he can't return. But the man has lived here the majority of his adult life. He's got a young child here that he hasn't seen for almost 4 years. And again, and Raha's going to talk about it in the clip. When you're detained in the immigration jail, and maybe you know about this, Pascal, because you did study law and you are an attorney. It's not, they can hold you for as long as they want because it's civil. It's a civil detention, you know, just like friendly fire, right? Kind and neighborly. So let's get Walter some attention. Hopefully let's get him out and let's get this whole system some attention because we need, thank you, Brandon. We need people to be aware that just because the orange man who said so many horrible things about Latin people, just because he's gone doesn't mean that, you know, motherfuckers are free. Families still aren't united. And it was very hard to actually make this clip. Originally, I did it as just an audio thing, and trying to find images that go with what Raha is saying, and the images that I found made me tear up. Seeing little kids crying, getting taken away from their parents, like just remembering being a child and how scared you get. Like, anybody ever get lost in the mall and you can't find your mom or dad? Like, that's some scary shit when you're little. So imagine getting taken away. So and to kind of add even more context to what I'm saying, a 2-month-old was part of the 76 that got deported. 2 months. Thank you for tweeting the clip, Brandon. I appreciate that, brother. I really do. So here is this clip. Tell me what you guys think. If you want me to stop making these things or what. Am I having Wi-Fi issues now all of a sudden? God damn it. Can you see it, Pascal?
It's circulating.
Oh, Jesus. Just my luck. Okay.
While in custody, being
You can hear it, right?
tattooed by an older gang member who ended up being a government informant. And so due to essentially the actions that someone has taken while being an agent of the United States, Walter now has permanent markings on his body that make him that endanger his life should he return to El Salvador. So he presented that case to the immigration judge and he won, except immigration law is nuts. And so even when you win, normally the person who wins sort of gets the benefit of having prevailed. But in what I sometimes call upside down land, even if you win, if you're the immigrant and you win and DHS decides to appeal, you stay in to allow them an opportunity to appeal. So Walter stayed in custody for over a year. And when the appellate court, the Board of Immigration Appeals, issued their decision, rather than make a final decision on his case, they remanded it. They sent it back to the immigration judge on a technicality. I'm going to spare your listeners what that exact technicality was, but it was a technicality. And when they sent it back down, the immigration judge who had granted his case was now gone. Actually, a lot of immigration judges left the court, the San Francisco Immigration Court, right around then, 2018, 2019. And so that judge was gone, another judge stepped in, and that judge actually re-granted Walter's case based on the findings of the first judge. So the second judge used those findings and said, yeah, Walter is more likely than not to be tortured in El Salvador. Can you guess what DHS did after that, Jason?
And they went ahead and said, F it.
They appealed again. Yeah, they were like, okay, you won again, we'll appeal again. And same thing, they appeal, it's not final, you stay in custody. So Walter stayed in custody for another year. And that decision came in July. So a couple months ago, we received a decision that shockingly sent it back, but this time not even to cure a technicality. The court just sent it back and said, just do the whole thing over again. And that is something that I've done this work. I've done deportation defense work for about 15 years, and I've never seen anything like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and do something that I don't normally do because I do not know the game of basketball, but I'm gonna borrow a beautiful analogy. I told somebody what had happened, and they were like, that's like if LeBron James had made a shot and Anthony Davis. No, you know what? I'm gonna set up. Let me start again. See, I don't do basketball analogies. Like I don't do.
Is there any sport that you do an analogy?
No, there's no sport. There's no sport. Okay, here we go. Stay with me. Are you ready?
I'm here. I'm ready.
Sure. Okay. There's a game. Okay, and someone shoots a basket and okay. All right. Are you laughing because I said basket and not a ball?
No, I'm just laughing at the
okay.
oversimplification of the analogy.
I feel like we're getting somewhere though. Okay, so
baskets have been shot.
The shot goes in, and we know that it was either LeBron James or Anthony Davis. And if rather than say, hey, they're members of the same team, so the Lakers win, the refs, you know what, we can't tell who shot it, and so just do the game all over again. That doesn't make sense because we know the Lakers won. And that's sort of exactly what happened with Walter. What has been clear twice now is that he has shown that he's more likely than not to be tortured in El Salvador. And when you make that very, very difficult showing in immigration court, you're supposed to be protected under domestic and international law. And so there's a need to do the game over again. Why do we need to do the game over again? Usually that happens if somebody fouls or someone makes a mistake. And in this case, nothing like that happened. And the crazy part is this is not a game. This is a man who's waited over 3 years to have some finality to his case, to have some resolution, to have some idea of when he walks out of that detention center, is it going to be to get on a plane to leave this country? Or is it going to be to end up back in San Francisco or Oakland? Where's he going to be? And that sort of indefiniteness of immigration detention is what makes immigration detention so psychologically terrorizing, is that it's not a sentence. It's not a period of time that you can wrap your head around. It's not a period of time that you can tell your family at the end of this 3 months, I will be home. Or even at the end of this 3 years, I will be home. I can't tell Walter as his attorney when he's going to be home, if he's going to be home, and where home is, right? And that's really incredible when you think about it.
And does this have a lot to do with that NDAA from 2012? Like you can be held indefinitely?
That gets
or is this more like Patriot Act kind of?
This is actually, you know, it's funny. This is actually really, truly basic immigration law. I mean, they're certainly they are related, but this is sort of how it's always been. We the United States can civilly detain you while we figure out whether or not to deport you. And because we the United States cleverly classify that detention as civil, it doesn't have the protections, that the minimum protections that people have when they're incarceration as criminals. When you're in criminal custody, you have the right to an appointed lawyer if you can't afford one. Under criminal laws, we have statutes of limitations. For most crimes, you can't just be dragged into custody years after an alleged offense takes place. There's a period of time in which the government has to act. And if it doesn't act in that time, then that period is over. We have Eighth Amendment protections against cruel and unusual punishment, right? The punishment has to fit the crime. There has to be some sort of proportionality of how long we can imprison you based on the conduct, right? So you have all these protections that when you take the criminal, I'm putting criminal in quotes here, the criminal classification out and you replace it with civil, those protections are gone. Why? Because it's civil and we're not punishing you. And so that's just to just pause here for a moment. That's pretty intense to put somebody behind bars, shackle them, take them away from their family members, place them in custody subject to the same type of things that happen in custody when you're in criminal custody, and then tell someone, oh wait, but don't worry about it because this is not, I know it feels just like jail. I know it feels just like prison, but that's not what we're doing to you. You're just in civil custody until we figure out whether or not to deport you.
So there it is. Just real quick, I want to thank Raha again for coming on. I really appreciate that. She's really, really busy with this case, and she's been doing press all day trying to get the word out. So for her to come on the late night, I really appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys, definitely in the motherfucking chat. This Pascal and I get super stoked to do this show because of the fact that we make it so interactive. And you guys have no idea that we always have like a list of things we're going to talk about and questions, and the chat tends to always push those into another direction. So on behalf of Pascal, I'll say, thank you guys for everyone that's become a patron, for everyone that's subscribed to the YouTube channel, so we can try to monetize it. Thank you very much. From the deepest, darkest depths of my heavy metal loving soul, thank you oh so much. And can you guys put some pressure on, because Pascal's gone right now, put some pressure on to finish that book, man. It's going to be an amazing book, an amazing fucking book. And I'm pretty fired up about him finishing this book. Hopefully it'll be out on Zero. So good news, always good things happening, right? We got to try to stay somewhat positive. There's a new clip up on Zero that I made of a conversation Torrey Reed and I had a clip that was just audio. I put some images in it. If you guys watch that clip, maybe I'll play it. Just going out one more because I can't get enough of you guys. When I talk about where I'm from, Richmond, California, I gotta highlight this shit because it's hilarious. I wish Pascal was here to see that shit, and I wish Torre and Cedric were here to see that shit, because when we did our show, that there was definitely some light skin jokes flying out. But when I talk about where I'm from, Richmond, California, I actually have pictures of where I'm from. And when I mentioned there's a mall that was, it was a little ways away from me, but is in my area. That is actually that mall, and that's what it looks. I think it looks even worse today because it's getting torn down. So yeah, you can see the pictures of the hood, if you will, of Richmond, and especially North Richmond. Thank you guys again. Thursday, please check out the chat. Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll be talking with Professor Ken Hammond. We're going to answer all of your China questions. I'm pretty much going to start off. I'm going to dive right into China's relationship with the Uyghurs. I've talked about it with Ken before on a show we did like last summer. And it was kind of towards the end of our conversation. Also, I've been working on, and maybe you've heard, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you've heard me talk about this, an animated series. And Ken is actually the first person to jump on board to give us the historical accuracy for the content for these little 2-minute movies about China. And we're literally just waiting for the animation to get finished. I did my first round of voiceover stuff for it, and Ken wrote the script. So Ken's an old school lefty. I think he was SDS back in the day. So if you guys want to ask him some SDS questions, he'll definitely answer them. And I'm on the fence. I don't know if I can, but I kind of want to do it with Dr. Bear as well, Dr. Asatar Bear, who definitely does a series, an educational series on China, as well as an educational series on the Soviet Union. So if you guys want me to get Dr. Bear on to do a Soviet Union show, because he actually has a really interesting take on Stalin and the Soviet Union. If you like Richard Wolff's take, Dr. Bear definitely goes a little deeper. And again, for those that don't know, haven't watched the show, Dr. Bear got his doctorate under Resnick and Wolff back in the day. So thank you guys again for checking out the show. Thank you guys again for helping get the likes, man. I appreciate that. Thank you guys for the Patreon that you have no idea help keep this thing going, because this bill for this app is really high. And I can't stress it enough. If you're friends with Pascal on Facebook, if you follow him on Twitter, just put him a little message. Hey, how's the book going? Hey, how's the book going? Because I'm hoping that he's got a lot done, more than we think. So I would love to see it come out this year. So before we go, I'm going to do this real quick, play this last clip with Torre, because the shit is pretty fucking cool, I think. So
I mean, in keeping with the zeitgeist of the 1990s and the zeal that many blacks had for tough on crime legislation, and I mentioned that I didn't vote for Bill Clinton, but I'm in the minority, right? I mean, most black people did vote for him. Yeah, I didn't vote for the Republican. I hadn't been lobotomized, but I couldn't. But my line about not voting for Bill Clinton or Al Gore, for that matter, was if I wanted to be a Republican, I would be a Republican. I wouldn't go for Republican white, which is what they ran on from, in effect, the damage that they inflicted on the trade union movement to the Clinton Republicans' embrace of Reagan Republicans' racialized war on poor people. right? I mean, that was racist. All the underclass ideology that Bill Clinton had spewed at that time, which contributed to the zeal for the tough on crime legislation, right? The super predator language and that kind of thing. But the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of blacks voted for Bill Clinton. Despite that, and I would say even partly because of that, Toni Morrison, for God's sake, described Bill Clinton as our first black president, right? But part of the reason for this, to take forever to get to this point, is that the black murder rate was very high, right? I mean, I think the black murder rate at the time was like 7 or 8 times higher than the white murder rate.
It was
likewise
reflected in the culture, right?
Well,
to your point, we get Boys in the Hood,
right,
which is 91. So this is right before Clinton comes into office. We're at the end of Bush Senior. The music kind of reflects it, right? Everywhere is a ghetto and a war zone. And coming from the ghetto war zone, yeah, people were getting shot. Shootings happened a lot, and the cops weren't there. And I lived down the street from the police station.
wow.
And the cops just they didn't fuck with you where I'm from. You know, it's Bill Clinton did a I want to say it was during when he was campaigning for Hillary, and he was in a room full of black people, which I'm sure black people turning on Bill Clinton is probably still fucking with him to this day. He probably has nightmares about that shit, like put the saxophone on Arsenio. Like, that was a long time
I'll
ago.
wear boxers. And I'll feel your pain. Right.
Yeah. My grandma met Bill Clinton and loved the hell out of him, by the way. He was that white guy, right? He was that Southern gentleman. Anyway, these black people are just yelling at him. And at some point he loses his cool and he's like, you asked for this. You weren't saying this back then.
Right.
And
that's true.
It's true. I remember how there's a mall not far from where I grew up, and that mall started having a rule that 2 black kids, or 2 kids in general, but they meant little colored kids, couldn't, if it was more than 2 walking side by side, some mall security would break you up. I don't know if your neighborhood was like that too, but that's how it was. People were getting shot at the movie theater.
Right. No, and some of those films where people were getting shot or where shots were fired were reflections, as you said, as you referenced, on the zeitgeist as well. Like, I mean, as I recall it, and memory's inventive, so what do I know on this? But it was the films that were black films, often enough, like Boys in the Hood and those kind of films. And I'm not suggesting that Boys in the Hood was one of the films for sure where shots were fired, but it was that genre of film. It was.
And then motherfuckers shot at Boys in the Hood.
Yeah.
To hear the rest of this show,